Hey folks, I'm Mike, and I hold in my hand a new prop. This is the DAL Cyclone 5047. It is a prop that is built for speed and for control, and is apparently being marketed at racers. But boy, is it good in proximity. So let's get into the basics of, first off, my build. My builds are heavy. They're bus style. This is the Fusion frame. I've got the Hype Train motors. They're 2306, 2450 kV. I've got 1500 milliamp hour China Hobbyline batteries, which are definitely not light. I run a heavy build. And one of the things that I'm always struggling with on my builds is bottoming out in really tight proximity. And it just so happens that I like to fly tight proximity. Things like, well, we're in Virginia, so there's trees everywhere. And there's one particular tree, which you're gonna see here in just a minute, that I love to fly. This prop, this DAL Cyclone 5047, is the first prop that I feel like has given me enough bottom end, low grunt to really pull off super tight, low to the ground proximity the way that I want to fly it. And I gotta say, it was awesome. The low end grunt is amazing, and quite frankly, with other props, I would have ended up on the ground a whole lot more. With this one, just a little blip of the throttle, and I was back up into the air, into the thing that I was trying to get into. Throttle control on this prop is hard. And part of the reason that it's hard is because it is, it's a variable pitch, 47 degree-ish prop. That's a lot of pitch. And so you get a lot of thrust. And part of the reason that it is so good in the low end is because there is a lot of thrust. You don't have to use a lot of throttle when you're cruising around, which actually works to your benefit. I was noticing that I was getting about my average pack times when I wasn't crushing it. But with it also being a high pitch prop, when I wanted to get on it and get going, it absolutely crushed it. It's fast and it's fun. Another thing about this prop that is truly amazing is that it is, the control is unbelievable. I would pick a line and it would just stay. With some of the other props, as you spin them up and down, they tend to bend and flex around. This particular prop doesn't bend and flex a lot. It's very, very stiff. And even when it comes into contact with things, it tends not to deform. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So you end up with a really consistent flight experience from the bottom of the throttle all the way to the top. And I had just some amazing recoveries because I could take a crash against, say, a tree and pull out of it without much problem. The props are extraordinarily durable with one minor note. And I really like them. Like, there's a few nitpicks I have, but for the time being, this is my new proximity prop. Another good thing about them is that DAL is selling them in bags of 6 pairs. So that's 12 props, so that's 3 complete sets. And if you do the math, they run, that averages out to about 286 per set of 4. That's not a bad price, especially for a prop that You know, I went out today and specifically did not change props unless I absolutely had to. In fact, I used 5 props in 8 batteries, and I was flying pretty hard in pretty tight quarters. So I would have expected to have changed props a lot more than that. But at 286, and with the durability that these things seem to offer, I think you have a really good budget prop on your hand. Not everything is great. They are super floaty. With this much thrust, you've got to really spend a pack or two to get used to the amount of thrust that they generate. I was up off the ground way higher than I intended on the first pack or so. And it took me a while to really dial in exactly where my throttle needed to be, which was almost at the bottom. And I'm not used to flying with my throttle almost at the bottom, but this prop gives you so much thrust that you can fly at such a low throttle. Now, the flip side to that is that when you get into the high end, they absolutely eat amps for breakfast. I did 2 punch outs and was completely shocked to see my amp draw go up to 138 amps. That's a lot, ladies and gentlemen, and you're not going to want to sustain that for very long. I suspect that if you wanted to make these your main go-to prop for everything, then you would probably want to put a max throttle on your setup. You're not going to need more than 70 or 80% on these things. It is way too much prop for what we're flying nowadays. There's one issue that has plagued DAL for quite some time, and that is that their props, when they break, seem to break off at the hub. And I did in fact have one prop break off at the hub. Now, I had come to rest in a tree accidentally, and when it came down, you could tell that it had dug into the dirt, and it was also very, very cold. But you probably should watch out and keep an eye on these to see if the same problems that were plaguing the 5040s are going to plague these, which is that they don't really bend, but when they break at the hub, and that's pretty much an unrecoverable break. I am very, very suspicious that this is a brand new type of plastic that DAL has put out, and here's why. They do not, you know how the 5046s, when you crash a 5046, if it's going to bend, it wrinkles right in the middle. These props don't wrinkle. They do not wrinkle. As a matter of fact, I had one prop that drooped but didn't wrinkle and didn't bend. It was a very odd distortion, and I'll have some B-roll up of that. It was a very odd distortion of the prop, where as opposed to, normally the prop would be like this. This prop just kind of drooped down after I took a shot from a tree. And that, combined with how stiff they are, I mean, they are super duper stiff. And here's the other thing. I was flying through a lot of scraggle. And if you fly through a lot of scraggle, you know that you typically take nicks onto the edge, the leading edge of your blades. The blades didn't nick. It was, I actually sat there and looked at them before, well, that's not gonna do any good, but I sat there and looked at them for a while, seeing if I could find any nicks. There are no nicks on the blades that I could find. And even more importantly, the tips did not come off. So even though in a couple instances I was trying to engage turtle mode and was just grinding the prop into the ground, it didn't nick and it didn't take off the tip. And keeping that airfoil intact with a nickless blade means that you're gonna get better quality out of these props in terms of jello and flight time. As a matter of fact, I think I ran 8 packs through these today in various situations, and I did not see any jello, and I didn't change props except for that one that just broke. I didn't see any jello until the very last flight, and by that point, you know, I'm sure that they were all beat to hell, basically. But that's a pretty impressive track record for flying a really scraggly area in the winter, in the cold. I think it was around 40 degrees. For these props to hold up the way that they did in this circumstance was pretty impressive. So all around, I give these props a thumbs up. They are a good prop, and I will continue to fly them for quite some time. If you do a lot of open field flying, if you do a lot of open space flying, if you do flying that needs conservative power draw, then this is probably not your prop. But if you need the power and the sheer grunt, especially in the low end, for tight proximity and for, you know, getting close to things, and just the sound, the soundness that comes from knowing that you could probably beat a brick wall with these things and they will come away still flyable. That gives you a confidence in your flight that I have not felt in quite a while. Anyways, my name is Mike. I hope that you enjoy this. And by the way, like, subscribe, comment. You guys have all seen me at this point. I'm trying to put out a lot of content. I want the content to be valuable to you, and it definitely helps me to know what you like to hear and what you don't like to hear based on your comments and your likes and your subscriptions. So hit the bell, do the whole 9 yards. I love hearing from you guys. Thank you, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.